She was still in her wedding dress when she ran. Rain hit the stone steps like it was trying to break them. Her veil was gone, lost somewhere between the ballroom and the door, and her feet were bare, heels abandoned on the threshold. The white dress dragged through water that reflected police lights and red and blue pulses. She wasn't running from the man behind her. She was running toward a decision she'd already made. Naomi. His voice. Close. Controlled, but only just. She stopped. Turned. Dante Vega stood at the top of the steps, shirt open at the collar, the roses tattooed on his neck visible from 20 feet away, looking at her the way she'd never seen him look at anything. Like he didn't know what came next. She raised her hand. The pregnancy test was still in her fingers. 2 lines. Unmistakable even in the rain. The wedding ring he'd placed on her hand 6 hours ago sat in the puddle between them. She hadn't thrown it. She'd simply let it go. 3 questions no one in that world could answer. What had she found? Whose child was she carrying? And after everything, would she come back? 3 months before the wedding, Naomi Caldwell had a plan. Graduate nursing school. Cover her mother's treatment costs. Move them both somewhere safer before winter arrived and the pipes in the building froze again. Simple. Manageable. Entirely hers. Then she walked into her mother's kitchen and found a man sitting at the table who wasn't her mother. Late 20s. Black suit, no tie. A neck tattooed with dark roses that wound upward toward a jaw that looked engineered to intimidate. He sat at her mother's table the way men sit in rooms they've already decided belong to them, comfortable, unhurried, a glass of sweet tea in front of him that he hadn't touched. He hadn't come to drink anything. "You're Naomi," he said. Not a question. She looked past him. Her mother stood at the sink with her hands pressed together so tightly the knuckles had blanched. Her mother, who had survived an abusive marriage, a chronic illness diagnosis, and 2 evictions without once looking small in front of her daughter. She looked small. "Your father borrowed from one of my operations," the man said. 5 years ago. He made payments until 2 years ago. My father died 2 years ago. I know. No cruelty in it. No heat. Just the flat delivery of a man for whom other people's tragedies were facts. The debt didn't die with him. His name was Dante Vega. She would learn in the next 10 minutes what that name meant to this city. 3 federal investigations with no indictments, 2 rivals who'd moved against him and quietly ceased to exist as problems, an empire built before his 25th birthday and defended with a precision that never left fingerprints. She just saw a man in her mother's kitchen who had made her mother look small. "How much?" she asked. 400,000. The number landed without visible reaction. She absorbed it internally, the way she'd been absorbing things all her life, storing it, assessing it, filing it somewhere behind her eyes. "We don't have $400,000, she said. "I know that too." He reached into his jacket. Both women tensed. He produced a single document and laid it on the table. "I'm not here for money." The contract was 2 pages. Marriage terms. 12 months. Legal, binding, signed in her presence. "Why?" she said. "Men in my world believe a man with nothing to lose is the most dangerous kind." He folded his hands. "I'd like to correct that impression. You want a shield." Something moved in his face. "I want a wife who will be protected. The difference matters to you." He looked at her directly then. Not through her. At her. Like she was a variable that had stepped outside its projected range. "Yes," he said. She read the contract standing up. Didn't sit. Didn't accept the chair he subtly indicated. She read it through completely while her mother stood at the sink not breathing and this man sat in the silence like he'd been waiting inside patience his entire life. She had questions. She saved them. She looked at her mother. Her mother's eyes were fixed on the middle distance, the look of someone who had processed every available option and run out of them. Naomi picked up the pen. Her hand didn't shake. She wouldn't allow it. She signed. Slid the document back. And met his eyes directly, not defiantly, not submissively, just steadily. He looked at her signature. Then at her. Something crossed his expression in under a second. There and gone. He hadn't expected her to look at him like that. Like she was already planning. She read every word standing up. She didn't sit down for him. I felt that. The contract had 17 clauses. Naomi read all of them in the back of his SUV, because discussing terms apparently meant sitting in leather-scented silence while his driver took the long route downtown and Dante Vega stared at his phone like she wasn't there. She was making notes in the margins by page 2. Clause 11, the party of the second part agrees not to investigate, inquire about, or interfere with the professional operations of the party of the first part. She circled it. This asks me to be willfully blind. He didn't look up. It asks you to be strategic. Those aren't the same thing. They produce identical results. Now he looked up. Those dark eyes, still, comprehensive, completely unrevealing. The clause protects us both. It protects you, she said. It implicates me. From the outside, yes. That's the point. He paused. The clause doesn't require you to do anything. Only to refrain. She moved to clause 14. Read it. Folded her hands over the contract. You've been planning this for a while, she said. Yes. Me specifically? Or just a wife in general? A pause that lasted precisely 1 second longer than calculation required. You specifically, he said. She looked out the window. They'd left her neighborhood entirely, small buildings replaced by glass towers, corner stores replaced by restaurants that didn't display prices. Why me? Your father's debt created a viable entry point. That's not an answer to what I asked. He was quiet long enough that she decided he wouldn't respond. You've been working 2 jobs to cover your mother's medical bills for 2 years, he said. Without asking anyone for help. Without finding a shortcut even when shortcuts were available. He paused. That kind of person doesn't talk. Doesn't break under pressure. Doesn't create problems they weren't already carrying. You ran a background check. Several. And decided I was psychologically suited for this. I decided you were the kind of person who could survive what this requires. He looked back at his phone. There's a difference. She absorbed that. Turned back to the remaining clauses. Read them all. At the end, she refolded the contract exactly as she'd received it. I have conditions, she said. He looked up. Something behind his eyes recalibrated, she caught it before he could smooth it. My mother stays in her home, she said. Your world does not touch her. Not directly. Not through proximity. Not ever. She held his gaze. My nursing school schedule is non-negotiable. I miss nothing, no lectures, no clinicals, no exams. Agreed. Too fast. He'd expected something larger. Something that would cost him more. Which meant she was well inside whatever figure he'd already assigned to this arrangement. She filed that. One more, she said. He waited. When the 12 months end, it ends. Completely. No renegotiation. No extended terms. No additional debts appearing from somewhere. Agreed, he said. She nodded once. Looked back out the window. You're quieter than I expected, he said. The observation seemed to escape him half a second before he could stop it. You expected crying, she said. I expected more questions. I have questions. She didn't look at him. I'm saving them for when the answers will actually be honest. A long pause. And when will that be? He asked. She looked at him then. When you stop treating me like a variable and start treating me like a person. She held his gaze. I'll know the difference. He studied her for a moment. Then, for the first time since she'd gotten in his car, he put his phone away. The house was not a house. It was a statement written in architecture. 4 stories. Walls of glass facing a garden that had no business being immaculate in November. A gate staffed by men who nodded at Dante the way congregants acknowledged a pastor, with the quiet understanding that he determined what happened here. Naomi arrived with 1 suitcase. He'd sent people to collect her things. She'd declined. A woman named Claudia, silver-streaked hair, expression carefully neutral, showed her to the 3rd floor room. King bed. Marble bathroom. Balcony overlooking that impossible November garden. Mr. Vega's room is at the end of the hall, Claudia said. Thank you, Naomi said. She was already unpacking her textbooks. Claudia's eyes moved across the stack of nursing manuals. Something shifted in her face, the brief recalibration of a woman who'd prepared for one type of person and received something entirely different. Dinner is at 8, she said, and left. 4 hours in, Naomi heard shouting. She'd grown up in a neighborhood where that sound was a signal to close your window and turn the television up. She walked downstairs instead. 4 men in the main room. Dante's lieutenants, she didn't know their names yet but recognized the energy. Maps across the table, photographs, a ledger with columns that didn't describe anything legal. They argued in rapid Spanish, voices rising. They stopped the moment they saw her. All 4 of them looked at her with the specific expression of men encountering something outside their prepared categories. I'm sorry, she said, not sounding it. I heard voices. Is everything okay? The broadest one, scar through his left eyebrow, the closed-door eyes of a man paid to see threats, stepped forward. Go back upstairs. Naomi. Dante's voice came from behind her. He'd entered without sound. Jacket off, sleeves rolled to the elbows. The tattoos on his neck continued down his forearms, more roses, words in Spanish she couldn't translate yet, and on his left wrist, a date in Roman numerals she immediately committed to memory. She crossed the room and stood at his side. He looked at the scarred man. She stays. What followed was one of the most instructive silences of her life. For men recalibrating in real time. Adjusting their understanding of who she was, what her presence meant, what standing in this room communicated to anyone watching. She hasn't been, the scarred man started. She's my wife. No volume. No heat. Just a finality so complete the room had nothing left to push against. She stays. Later, she would understand what that moment cost him inside his own organization. What it signaled. What it demanded everyone adjust to. At dinner, the men gone, the house quieter, he refilled her water glass without being asked. She noticed. She always noticed. Why did you do that? She asked. Include me. He set the pitcher down. You walked into a room with 4 armed men and asked if everyone was okay. He picked up his fork. I wanted them to understand what kind of person is in this house. You wanted them to respect me. I wanted them to understand, he said, that courage doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just walks into rooms it has no business being in. He paused. That's more useful to me than their comfort. She looked at his wrist. The date. Roman numerals. His jaw tightened. Fractionally. My mother's birthday, he said. She didn't push. But she remembered. He said she has the kind of courage that doesn't announce itself. This man is studying her. The photograph arrived on a Tuesday inside a plain envelope with no postage. It had been placed directly inside the inner gate, which meant someone had cleared the outer perimeter without triggering a single sensor. Dante's security team spent the next 6 hours failing to explain how. He let them fail. Inside the envelope, one photograph. Naomi outside her nursing school, walking toward the parking structure. Burgundy coat. Earbuds in. Textbook under her arm. Timestamped 11 days ago. Before she'd moved into the compound. Before Dante had told a single person about the arrangement. He showed her at dinner. No softening. He set it on the table beside her plate and watched. She looked at it without touching it. He's been watching me longer than you have, she said. Yes. Which means this wasn't reactive. She looked up. He anticipated you'd need someone. He was already watching candidates. Dante said nothing. Which was an answer. Who is he? Rodrigo Salcedo. The name landed flat and final, the way you said the name of something you'd already made a decision about. Eastern Distribution Network. He's been demanding a territorial agreement from me for nearly a year. What does he want from me specifically? Another pause, longer than his usual ones. Your father wasn't only a community organizer, Dante said. He spent a decade documenting cartel activity in the neighborhoods he worked in. Names. Transactions. Protected relationships at multiple levels of city government. He folded his hands. Salcedo believes your father left that documentation to someone before he died. He's been looking for it ever since. She absorbed that. My father was building a case against a cartel boss. Your father was building a case that could collapse an entire institutional network. Police. Judiciary. Local government. He paused. Whether he passed it on before he died is the question Salcedo can't answer. So he's been watching me for 2 years. Looking for evidence that you have it. Or that you know where it is. She looked at the photograph again. At herself, walking alone, completely unaware of being seen. She'd made that walk 100 times. The thought didn't shake her. It clarified something cold and useful. My mother, she said. 2 people near her building already. He'd anticipated it. She isn't alone. She nodded slowly. Set the photograph face down. 3 years ago, she said. Your brother. He went very still. You said Salcedo put a bullet in his shoulder. As a message. She looked at him. The same way this photograph is a message. Yes, he said. He does this methodically. Escalating. Watching what you protect before he decides how to threaten it. Yes. She thought about that for a moment. Then we have to make sure, she said, that he sees exactly what he expects to see. She met his eyes. A man who has something real to lose. He looked at her for a long moment. Most people, he said slowly, when they learn they've become a target, they want out. I know. She picked her fork back up. I'm not most people. He looked at her across the table. He was doing it again, the measuring that didn't look like measuring. She let him look. She found him in the kitchen at 2 in the morning. She'd expected to have the room to herself. She'd been studying since 10, pharmacology, which required the kind of sustained focus that made company feel like weather. She came downstairs for coffee and found him at the counter in gray sweats and a worn t-shirt, watching coffee brew with the slightly unfocused expression of a man who'd been awake too long. Without the suit. Without the context of what he was. Just a person who couldn't sleep. He looked up when she entered. Sit down, he said, after a beat. I'll make enough for 2. She sat at the island. Opened her pharmacology notes out of habit. He moved around the kitchen without speaking, without asking what she took in her coffee, without asking if she wanted any at all, and set a mug beside her textbook. Black. No sugar. Exactly right. He'd been watching her the same way she'd been watching him. Filing things. She stored that next to everything else. Thursday test, he said. Not a question. Pharmacology. Drug interaction mapping. She looked at her notes. Complex dosage calculations. He leaned against the counter across from her. Mug in both hands. In the kitchen light, stripped of every layer of context and performance, he looked younger. Not young, there were lines beside his eyes that hadn't come from laughing, a quality of tiredness that had been present so long it had become structural. But younger than the man who ran rooms and ended conversations. "What made you choose nursing?" he asked. She looked up. He almost never asked personal things. Not directly. "My grandmother was sick when I was 9, she said. She had a nurse named Donna who came to the house. Before Donna did anything, adjusted a pillow, took a blood pressure, anything, she explained what she was doing and why. Every single time." She paused. "I asked her once why she bothered explaining everything. She said my grandmother deserved to understand what was happening in her own body." She looked at the table. "That stayed with me. The idea that care without explanation is really just control with better intentions." The kitchen was quiet for a moment. "My mother died in a hospital," he said. "When I was 16. She looked up and said nothing. Let it exist in the room. She spoke limited English. The doctor spoke to my uncle. For 11 days, every update, every decision, every question. She lay in that bed and no one spoke to her directly." He looked at his mug. She never understood what was happening to her. The parallel landed without commentary from either of them. She didn't name it. Neither did he. "I'm sorry," she said simply. The way she'd been trained to mean it, fully, without performance. He nodded once. "Your mother's last treatment claim was declined by the clinic," he said, pivoting. She was learning that was how he moved when he'd shown something he didn't know what to do with. "I had it corrected this morning. Her next 3 years of treatments are fully covered." She stared at him. "You didn't tell me. You didn't ask. You should have told me anyway." He considered that. She could see the consideration, actual, unhurried thought rather than managed response. "You're right," he said. "I should have." She looked at him. "You've said that before," she said. "That I'm right." "You've been right before." Something moved through her that she chose not to examine yet. "Thank you," she said quietly. He nodded. Poured his coffee. Stayed. They remained in the kitchen until almost 4 in the morning. She studied. He read. They spoke perhaps a dozen words between then and the time she went back upstairs. But the silence had changed. She felt it. He felt it. Neither of them said so. Some things don't need to be said to become real. They stayed in silence until 4 a.m. and neither of them left. They're both feeling it and too scared to say it. The wedding was at noon. At 9 in the morning, Naomi sat on the bathroom floor with a pregnancy test in both hands and everything she had understood about her own life rearranging itself without asking permission. She'd bought the test 8 days ago. Carried it through lectures and overnight study sessions and a growing physical certainty she'd been refusing to confirm, because confirming things made them real and real things required decisions. She looked now. 2 lines. She sat with them. Breathed the way she'd learned to breathe inside enormous things, slowly, from the center of the chest, the breath of someone who needed to stay functional while the world shifted under her. Dante Vega's child. Growing inside a body that had come to his house through a contract built on numbers she hadn't yet had reason to question. Inside a life that was 3 months old, with an exit clause 9 months away, inside a marriage that was, today, becoming legally real. She stood up. Put the test in her purse, wrapped in tissue, at the very bottom. Went to the desk to find the earrings Claudia had left her. The earring case sat on top of a manila folder. Her name on the tab. Dante's handwriting, that careful, particular script she'd come to recognize. She opened it. Her father's debt. Full itemization. Every loan installment, every missed payment, 5 years of compounding interest, and a final settled balance. $62,000. She read it 3 times. $400,000 was the weight that had made the contract feel like oxygen, the number calibrated to close every door except the one Dante had already opened. She understood now that it hadn't been carelessness or approximation. It had been architecture. The distance between 62 and 400,000 was not an error. It was the margin by which he had removed her ability to choose. She set the folder down. Put on the earrings. Looked at herself in the mirror. She was pregnant. She was about to walk down an aisle to a man who had chosen her deliberately, before she had any knowledge of him, before she had any ability to consent, who had built a numerical lie large enough to remove every visible alternative. And she did not know why. That was the weight of it. Not the lie. Not even the child. The why. What did Dante Vega need from her so specifically that he had manufactured this entire structure to obtain it? What had her father's debt, the real one, the small one, given him access to that nothing else would? She picked up her bouquet. Looked at herself one final time. She would walk down that aisle. She would stand in front of 200 of his people and sign whatever needed signing. And tonight, when the ceremony was over and the guests were gone and there was nowhere left to put the truth, she would make him answer every question she had been saving since the day she first picked up that pen. She looked exactly like a woman who had decided. Because she had. She found out she was pregnant and found the lie on the same morning. Then still walked down the aisle. I cannot. The last guest left at 10:43. The compound settled into the particular silence of a space that had held 200 people and now held 2. Naomi stood on the main hall balcony in her dress, watching the November garden below, feeling the rain start against her bare shoulders, first soft, then insistent. She heard him come up behind her. Come inside, he said. It's getting cold. I know the debt was 62,000. The silence behind her changed entirely. The folder was under my earring case, she said. I read it before the ceremony. Every page. She heard him breathe, slow, controlled. The sound of a man managing something he hadn't scheduled. Come inside, he said again. Different. You sat in my mother's kitchen, she said. You looked at her. You looked at me. And you said 400,000 with complete calm, because 400,000 was a number that sealed every door. She turned. 62,000 leaves doors open. He stood in the balcony threshold. Jacket gone. The roses on his neck fully visible in the rain light. He was looking at her in the specific way she'd only ever caught when he thought she wasn't watching. I can explain. I know you can. She walked past him into the hall, and then, before she'd fully made the decision, kept walking, down the stairs, toward the front door. I've known since this morning. I walked down that aisle knowing. She pushed the door open and walked into the rain. I was waiting to see if you'd tell me tonight without being asked. He followed her down the steps. Naomi. She stopped on the stone drive. Turned. He was 10 feet away, rain running off both of them, the compound lit behind him. The real explanation, she said. Not the prepared version. He looked at her for a moment. Then he said it. All of it. Salcedo. Her father's documentation. 8 months of watching Salcedo's people move closer to her and her mother. The specific calculation that a wife, a person visibly under his protection, created a barrier Salcedo wouldn't cross directly. The debt gave access. The inflated number guaranteed agreement. He finished. The rain filled the silence. You chose me before you ever came to that kitchen, she said. Yes. You decided what my life needed to look like before I knew you existed. Yes. She reached into her purse. Took out the pregnancy test. Held it up between them. The light from the doorway caught it. 2 lines. She watched it cross his face. Not the managed processing she'd come to expect from him. Something structural cracked underneath the control, the face beneath the face, a man standing in rain on his wedding night, looking at something that had no strategy underneath it. I found out this morning, she said. Same morning as the folder. He took one step toward her. She held her ground. I'm not afraid, she said. I need you to understand that clearly. I am not falling apart and I am not running. She held his gaze through the rain, through everything between them. But I am standing here pregnant, inside a life you architected around me without my knowledge. And I need a night where I'm not inside your walls deciding what I'm choosing. He said nothing. She reached up. Removed her wedding ring. Held it. Let it fall. It landed in the puddle between them with a small, precise sound. They both looked at it in the water. Jade's apartment, she said. I have my phone. She walked past him. This time, he didn't follow. Just the rain. And the ring, sitting in the puddle between the place she'd been standing and the place he still was. She didn't throw it. She didn't scream. She just let it go. That's not anger. That's grief. She was at Jade's apartment for 4 hours. Not 3 days. 4 hours. Her mother called at 2:47 a.m., voice compressed to barely a whisper, the sound of a woman who had learned over 60 years that staying quiet was sometimes the only available shield. Someone's inside the house, baby. The back door. Naomi was already dialing Dante before her mother finished the sentence. He picked up before the first ring completed. I know, he said. I have 2 men 3 blocks away. They're moving now. They went to her tonight. The same night I left your compound. Yes. They've been watching for an opening. She was already looking for her shoes. Dante. My father's Bible, 3rd shelf in my room. He gave it to me at the hospital. I never looked inside the back cover. A pause that contained an entire calculation. How fast can you get back here, he said. 10 minutes. I'll be at the gate. He was standing in the rain when she arrived, still in his wedding shirt, open at the collar, jacket gone. He looked at her, still in the dress, soaked through, barefoot with her heels in her hand, and something moved through his expression that had nothing to do with logistics. Neither of them said it. They went inside. Tomas met them in the entrance hall. Face tight. 4 confirmed. East perimeter, came in through the service corridor. Used the catering van. He looked at Naomi briefly. They know she came back. Dante turned to her. Expression stripped to exactly what mattered. 3rd shelf. The Bible. Right now. She ran. She took the stairs 2 at a time, dress trailing water on the marble. Found the Bible exactly where she'd left it, between Harrison's Principles and her pharmacology binder. Pulled it down. Pressed her thumb to the back cover. A density that wasn't cardboard. She pressed her thumbnail into the corner of the lining. Peeled it back. A flash drive. And beneath it, folded into quarters, her father's handwriting. She didn't read it yet. Downstairs, glass shattered, the deliberate, purposeful sound of a window being forced. She ran for the door. She made the hallway. She did not make the stairs. A man emerged from the far bedroom doorway. Wrong suit. Wrong posture. Wrong eyes. He moved fast. She had half a second. She threw herself through the bathroom door, locked it, heard him impact the frame. Heard Dante's voice from below, the quiet version, which she now understood was the most dangerous version. The door took 2 hits before the frame cracked. She stepped back. The marble counter edge caught her upper arm, a hard, slicing contact. She felt it open before she felt the pain. Her hand went to it on instinct. Blood on her palm, spreading immediately into the white fabric of the dress. Dark and definite against the ivory. The door went still. Then footsteps she recognized, their exact weight and rhythm, stopped directly outside. Naomi. Dante's voice. Controlled but only just, and she had learned, over 3 months, to hear the difference. Open the door. She unlocked it. He was in the doorway. His eyes found her arm in 1 second. Something moved across his face, not panic. Something quieter. More fundamental. Something that looked like fear. It's shallow, she said immediately. Already slowing. I assessed. He stepped in. Took a hand towel from the rack. Pressed it against her arm. He did not let go. His hands were steady. She noticed. The safe room smelled like concrete and old air. She sat with her back against the wall, towel pressed to her arm, flash drive in one hand, her father's letter open on her knee. The clock read 3:31 a.m. She read the letter once. Naomi, if you're reading this, I didn't make it back, which means I'm sorry in more ways than I'll ever be able to tell you properly. What I was doing was right. I need you to know that, even though the way I did it wasn't always. Salcedo's operation isn't criminal in the ordinary sense, it's institutional. Police commissioners, 3 sitting judges, city council leadership. They've been on his payroll for 15 years. I've been documenting it for 10. The drive has everything. Find someone who has as much to lose as Salcedo does if it stays hidden. Give it to them. Someone you trust. I thought that was going to be me, nay. I ran out of time. You never needed me to protect you as much as I needed to believe you did. That was my failure, not yours. I love you. Don't be afraid. She folded it precisely. Placed it in the inner pocket of the ruined dress. And then she sat in the sounds of the house settling around her and thought, not reacted. Thought. About a father who spent a decade walking towards something that eventually caught up with him. About a Bible she'd moved from apartment to apartment for 2 years, treating it as a keepsake. About $62,000 dressed as $400,000. About a man who had constructed a lie specifically to save her life, and then, when she found the lie, had told her the complete truth without softening it. Without negotiating. Without asking for anything in exchange. She thought about every small thing she'd stored over 3 months. The water glass refilled without being asked. Her mother's bills paid before she'd thought to request it. The date on his wrist, his mother's birthday, carried on his skin because she deserved to be remembered somewhere permanent. 4 armed men in a room, and she stays. She thought about a 16-year-old boy standing in a hospital corridor where no one spoke to his mother directly. She thought about a nursing student named Donna who explained every single thing before she did it. She thought about the kitchen at 2 a.m. How he'd stayed until 4 in the morning, reading quietly, not asking her to perform anything. She had told herself for 3 months that cataloging him was strategy. She understood now that it wasn't. The door opened. Dante came in first. Cut above his eyebrow, knuckles split on one hand, breathing in the measured rhythm of someone who had been moving at full force and had just stopped. He found her with that immediate, comprehensive sweep. Finding her upright. Finding her whole. Something in him settled visibly, the release of a tension she hadn't realized he'd been carrying since she walked out into the rain. He crossed the room. Crouched in front of her. The baby, he said. She looked at him steadily. Is the baby all right? Not a question. The specific need of a man asking about something he hadn't understood he was going to care about until the moment it became something that could be lost. Yes. She held his gaze. The baby is fine. I'm fine. He exhaled, long and slow and completely unguarded. You knew this morning, he said. Yes. You still walked down the aisle. I needed to understand the difference between what I'd been placed in, she said, and what I was choosing. She looked at him. That distinction matters to me. He was quiet for a long time. She held up the flash drive. My father said to give this to someone you trust, she said. He looked at it. Then at her. He took it. She gave him the one thing every man in that city had been killing each other for. She just handed it to him. Trust. The meeting was on a Friday. A restaurant Salcedo owned through 3 layers of property holding companies, his definition of neutral ground. Which meant it was his ground. Which meant it was the kind of neutral that reminded you of the imbalance at every moment. Dante had agreed. Naomi had insisted on being present. They argued twice. The way they argued, not loudly, but completely. "You're pregnant," he said. "I'm 10 weeks pregnant," she said. "I am not fragile, I am not incapacitated, and I have spent 3 months learning how rooms like this one function." She held his gaze. "What I'm carrying into that room isn't just leverage. It's the only language Salcedo actually respects, the language of consequences he cannot contain." She paused. "This ends because of me, or it doesn't end." He argued once more. Then he stopped. Friday. No other diners. Salcedo at the corner table, broad, unhurried, wearing 50 years of impunity like an inheritance. 2 men behind him. Dante had Tomas and Marco. Naomi sat beside Dante. All black. Earrings. No ring. Salcedo looked at her with the particular inattention powerful men weaponized, the deliberate act of making someone feel invisible. Then looked at Dante. "You came," he said. "So did you," Dante said. Salcedo's eyes moved to Naomi. Slower this time. The recalibration of a man deciding whether she mattered. "Your father's daughter," he said. "His work, specifically," she said. She placed a single page on the table. 1 document from the drive. A wire transfer, 3 names, 2 commissioners, and a sitting federal judge, dated 11 years ago. Her father's annotations in the margins, cross-referenced with secondary documentation that established pattern rather than incident. 1 page of hundreds. Salcedo looked at it without touching it. His expression didn't move. His hands, on the table, went completely still. "He spent 10 years being thorough," she said. "What's on that drive isn't an operations file. It's a structural map. The people documented in it aren't foot soldiers. They are the foundation your operation stands on." She folded her hands. "The complete files have been distributed to 4 independent parties. None of whom know each other. None of whom are within your reach." She held his gaze. "If anything happens to me, to my mother, to anyone connected to me." She paused. "Let it land completely. Including the child I'm carrying." His eyes moved involuntarily, briefly, just once, to her midsection. Then back to her face. She didn't look away. "Everything releases," she said. "Every file. Every name. Simultaneously." The room was completely still. Dante sat beside her. No movement. No intervention. No performance. She understood now what this was, not patience, not strategy. It was the specific, deliberate act of a man choosing to let someone else hold the room because it was theirs to hold. Salcedo looked at Dante. "You let your wife handle this." "She didn't ask for permission," Dante said. "And I don't give it for things that already belong to her." Another silence. Salcedo sat back 2 inches. She knew that geometry now, the body of a man rearranging what he believed was fixed. "We're done," he said. He stood. His men stood. He walked out without looking back. The door closed. Tomas exhaled like a man surfacing. Naomi looked at her hands on the table. Still. Level. She looked sideways at Dante. He was already looking at her. Fully. The face behind the face. No armor. No management. Just the man she'd been building a picture of since the first night in the kitchen, now completely visible. She turned her hand over on the table. He placed his over it. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "About what comes next. About the contract, about," she put her other hand briefly on her stomach. "About all of it." "Yes," he said. "All of it," she said. All of it, he agreed. He said he doesn't give permission for things that already belong to her. I need everyone I know to watch this. 3 months later, Naomi Caldwell stood in the kitchen at 2 in the morning. Chamomile tea, because her body had made the decision and she'd stopped arguing with it around week 14. She heard his footsteps before she saw him, their particular weight on the stairs, the rhythm she'd memorized without ever deciding to, the same way she'd memorized everything about him without choosing to start. Dante appeared in the doorway. Looked at her. Looked at the kettle already on the stove. Chamomile again, he said. Don't start, she said. He came in anyway. Put the kettle on, though it was already going. Stood beside her the way he'd learned to stand beside her, close, quiet, not requiring anything of the space. The contract had dissolved. What replaced it had no document, no clauses, no exit terms. Just a choice. Made daily. By a woman who had walked into a lie and chosen to stay inside the truth she'd found underneath it. Her father's evidence had moved through the right channels, quietly. Salcedo had gone still. Several men who had held positions too long were no longer holding them. Her father hadn't run out of time. He'd given his time to her. She graduated in 4 months. She had already chosen her specialty. Care with dignity. Exactly as always. Dante set the tea beside her without a word. She leaned, slightly, without ceremony, against his arm. He didn't move. Some doors are built to look exactly like walls. The difference is whether you were meant to find them.